to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13.
Good evening. I'd like to open the meeting of the Exeter Planning Board of October 28th, 2021, and begin by having the board introduce themselves. I'm Langdon Plummer. I'm chairman of the Exeter Planning Board, and way down to my left is
Nancy Belanger, alternate.
John Gruder.
Aaron Brown.
Pete Cameron. Thank you.
English.
Molly Cowan.
Jennifer Martell.
Mark Detour.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to, first item on the business is a public hearing that was scheduled for tonight. I think we all got an email from Dave, and thank you for that. There's a little septic situation that needs to be taken care of. So, and a developer needs time to do that. So I guess I'm looking for a motion. I'm looking for a motion to table this item to November 11th.
Table.
Next meeting, Dave?
Next meeting?
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because November 4th is the next meeting, which is next week, but that's not realistic. November 8th.
Oh, because it's November. Yeah, okay.
Well,
We switch.
it's a week, and we determined they needed a conditional use permit, so they need to file with the Conservation Commission, which I believe the deadline was today. I don't know if they filed or not. So, I mean, I think but the November 18th, which is fine to table it to, but
They may not be ready.
no, they might not be ready, but that's not a big deal, because then we can just table them again. But there's a conflict with the Budget Review Committee meeting, and they have this room.
Oh, good grief.
So,
Nancy, can you get a move out?
I don't know what we want to do about that. If we want to
we not have
reschedule
a
it to
meeting
a different
otherwise?
day, or,
Do we not have a meeting the 18th?
no, we have a meeting scheduled on our schedule. For
Where are we
the
going to be?
We just don't have a
Well,
room.
that's what I'm here talking
All right,
about.
so that's just in general. We don't.
Do we have any business?
We do not have a room at this time, no.
So wait a sec. We are deferring to another committee?
You've been deferred.
Rats, I did it again.
Chairman Plummer, you going to put up with that?
Well, I'm trying to get our member who sits on that committee to do something
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
the CIP.
No
wrap-up.
pressure.
That's not moving anywhere.
Yeah, it's past tense, that's already done.
We've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
downstairs before.
Downstairs, yeah.
In the corner.
Downstairs.
We've been down there before.
Yeah, I
We can
mean,
do
we
it.
could try, I mean, there's not, I don't think anyone knew it was being continued, and there's no public here for it.
Yeah. I don't think there was anybody here last time either.
There wasn't any public here last
Yeah.
time, so, yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, we could try the wheelwright
Done it
room.
down there before.
Are they
Yeah.
anxious to roll forward as fast as they can, given,
I haven't talked to them about that, but I would say yes. I mean, as most of them are, especially given the time,
Looks like it's an empty building.
and there's no one else on the agenda, it would just be them
At this point,
for the
yes.
18th?
Yes. At this point, yes.
Would it be televised down there? Because I would want to watch it because I have to
They'd
be up
record
here.
it, I
They would.
believe.
Yes,
Okay.
they still record.
Maybe they're listening and they could, confirm that, but generally that's how I think in the past it's not live, we record the meeting.
That's fine, as long as I can hear it and not just go by the meeting minutes. That would be great, appreciative anyway. Because I'd be up
Okay,
here.
then, table it till the November 18th planning board meeting at 7 PM.
I make a motion to table planning board case number 21-10 to November 18th, 2021 at 7 PM.
How about in the Wentworth, what's the room down there?
Wheelwright?
Wheelwright,
In the wheelwright room.
in the wheelwright room. Yeah.
Second.
Who's that? Oh, got us, John's here. Thank you, John.
John, this guy, John.
I mean Jack. Okay. Voice vote, please. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
And we will notice it, because I want to say that, Bob, she didn't say it in her note, but there may be a conflict with the wheelwright room too, but we'll find a space.
Okay.
Because I believe that would be the, could be HTC.
Chairman's.
We definitely do.
Yeah, Chairman's house.
Well,
Okay.
we'll find a venue,
Yes.
and we will put
We'll arm
properly
wrestle
notice.
for it.
Okay. Next order of business is the approval of minutes of October 14th, 2021, and I'd like to express my appreciation to our vice chair for running a meeting last time and doing a good job at it, and the board members that were here doing equal diligence and long discussions on interesting things. But they actually finished before 9 o'clock, I noticed that, and I appreciate that because I didn't have to watch TV that much further. It wasn't a long, boring meeting, so. The minutes of the 14th are on the board table. Anybody would like to make some comments? Pete, you've been looking seriously at this?
I have some. Gwen, do you have?
You go.
Oh, 144, which is on page 4.
Oh, yeah. Got to get it down there. There.
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't say which.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm,
Oh, yes.
okay.
Aim your microphones, everybody.
All right, should we try 144
Try
again?
line 44 again, please.
And that actually, it's the vice chair questioned how the board felt about asking the applicant. Now, that leaves me with the conclusion, did we actually discuss that? Because he's raised that he questioned how the board would, feel about asking. Now, I just think that seems to be hanging out there with,
That's my comment, Pete, so I guess I'll address it. I think my understanding of minutes is they're really just supposed to be a general summation of what happened, and we have them recorded also. And I would say that did bring up the issue. If you look further down, one of our conditions was that they had to have an executed joint road maintenance agreement as part of the approval. If you look down at 149, you'll see that.
Yeah.
And that's reflected appropriately. So I was really just bringing that topic up in the hearing because I thought it was important. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I think it's okay.
There was quite a lot of discussion about that.
Yeah, there was.
Excuse me.
down to 159, where allegedly I asked Ms. Murphy to reread the 5 conditions. I believe it was only the 5th condition and not all 5.
She did read all 5, I think. My memory is she read all 5, Pete.
Did. Yeah, she did.
I'm sorry?
She did read all 5.
That's going to say.
I know she read them, but then I asked her to reread number 5 because I wasn't clear as to what it actually was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
159.
Yep. No,
So I think rather
I
than
got
the
it.
5 conditions, it would be the 5th condition. Or condition number 5. But I wouldn't have been so mean as to ask her to read all 5 of them.
Okay.
All right. No, this is no, I'm not going to do that one. 201. Whereas the sentence, the fire department reviewed site during ZBA. Well, I'm not quite sure that that's what they did, but maybe they did during the ZBA. The ZBA is a hearing, I think.
I suspect that's what.
ZBA is a hearing.
So I'm not, did they review it at the hearing?
I'm not sure. Reviewed what?
That's it. I don't know.
The site. They reviewed the site.
Site.
And if they reviewed the site, it wasn't
Went
at the
through
hearing.
technical review.
It didn't go through
See, with the ZBA, there was no review, you don't think?
review. When you say technical review, I
Site
think of
plan-
the official
site
technical
plan
review.
Site plan review. I went through them.
I
You got
don't-
comment? No
Yeah.
comment that you know of?
You sent us a memo.
I think it was in your
an email,
memo.
Or in the
Yeah.
packet. And Assistant Chief Pizon made a comment.
Yeah.
For the ZBA, that might be what was being
For
talked
the
about.
ZBA. Okay, no, I'm not,
The zoning
Jen?
board of adjustment is the ZBA.
Well, we know that.
understood. I guess I'm
Right.
not clear on what the question is then.
Well-
I guess I'm not clear. I can pull the file if we need to.
No. The question is, fire department reviewed site during ZBA. It's when they
Oh,
reviewed the site, and it was not during the ZBA.
Comment 198.
I can't yeah.
Mr. Greer responded to the DPW's comments. And that's what Peter is going over, is the Greer's response to the comments, which is part of his presentation.
Well,
But
nobody else.
are you saying he represented the fire department reviewed it during the
Yes.
ZBA process? Well, there was no technical review committee. I cannot answer for the fire department when they reviewed it.
Okay.
Okay, well, then let's forget it, if we're getting all tangled up in it.
Okay.
Now, 225, 225. Vice Chair Brown scheduled the site walk for December 26. I think an A belongs before the T, so it reads at December 26 at 8 a.m.
October 26th.
And with that, I'm going to waive all the rest of my comments.
Okay, Glenn?
We're on that page, line 222. I'd like to change the third word is owner, is. Let me start again. The third word is, and I would like to change that to was. The owner was most likely aware of the requirement before the development.
Okay.
And then on page, I just have one more. On 114, I feel better if it reads, if there's a period after the word significant, so that's one sentence. And then the next sentence could be written, she also noted that there is a natural break in the pavement where the pavement could or would be removed on the new lot. If I combined all those thoughts in one sentence, it doesn't make sense, so.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, anyone else?
I have one.
Okay, Jen?
Line 234. There's a sentence that just says, there should be a record of pervious surfaces and no vegetation removed. I don't think that's something I said, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't that, so I'd like to just strike that sentence. And that's all.
And that, no vegetation was removed. Is that what it is?
I'm not sure.
Jan, is it, there should be a record of pervious surface, and that no vegetation was removed? Are there just two words missing?
Or any vegetation removed? And any
I
vegetation?
don't think I ever requested a record of pervious surfaces, or that, I guess I did, so, I'm thinking now, so this I think was with regard to the.
Patios.
Patios.
The patios.
No, I think this was actually with regard to the abutters comments about,
Runoff?
Runoff?
about, yeah, he was commenting about the removal of vegetation
Right.
runoff, and the applicant said there's no vegetation being removed.
Right.
And I may
Right.
have said that not all the vegetation, I think, was showing up in the plans, like there were some trees. It's funny.
Yeah, one of the things on the sidewalk too, I thought there was should I bring this up? I don't know if we should talk.
Need some
about the
housekeeping out
sidewalk or
back.
not. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, you can talk about your time that you
We
walked
went
the
up and
site. It wasn't
visited.
technically a meeting because there was only
I know.
2 of you and 3 of you and me, but
It's okay to talk about them?
I think so.
All right, so there was a tree that some people won't be happy about having to remove because it is a significant tree,
Really?
but it is in the leach field. I mean, it's not in the leach field, but anybody who, like, I think you both have leach fields, I know I do. If you have a significant tree next to your leach field is gonna be destroyed because the roots just thrive on that
I
material.
agree, the tree will do very well.
Yeah, it will, and they'll be replacing another leach field, which kind of is
Right.
worse than not having a tree, so, I wanted to bring it up because it may be something where we say, hey, you know, if you're taking that beautiful of a tree down, it would be nice to at least plant something. Maybe it takes 20 years to be at all similar, but it would be nice to get a decent tree back or something, even maybe near the road for screening for them, because it's a fairly busy road, and this is a residential little project.
Yep.
What's that got to do with the minutes?
Yeah, that's not.
It's vegetation that's gonna be removed. It has nothing, that's why I asked the planner's permission there, Jack. Thought I missed you.
Wish I
I
could.
think I was requesting clarification that all the vegetation on the site shows up on the plans, and anything that is going to be removed shows up on the plans, and that wasn't on there, so if,
I'm not going to be in the car with them for 2 hours.
maybe it just needs to be, maybe just the actual conversation needs to be reviewed, because I don't think this, I read this sentence and I thought that doesn't sound like what I said.
Well, it doesn't need even to be in the minutes, so.
Yeah, I think the first
Take it out.
suggestion of just striking that sentence will be
It doesn't need
adequate.
to be, it's not required.
All right, I'll strike that sentence then. Okay? Are you waving your
All right, so
hand?
I'm gonna change one thing.
I got another little one, but.
I'm gonna change one thing, Lang, I never do this.
Wait a minute,
No, I'm forgetting it.
you're forgetting it, okay, yes.
I'm just saying.
We appreciate that.
On 182, for instance.
Wait a minute. We got a new player here, who wants to make a comment on the minutes.
You want
Your
me to-
turn, yes.
All right. I was gonna say on 235, it talks about common utilities, and Mr. Greer described the well room. And well room is just a confusing term. I would say well radius instead of room.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
200 feet.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
I will.
Okay, a second, please? That's to approve the minutes as corrected?
Was that the motion? There was no motion.
I did.
You made the motion?
Yeah.
All right. Second?
Third.
You looking for a third?
Was that a second?
Yep, I
Oh,
seconded it.
thank you.
Going.
Thank you. I thought that was a question. Okay, all right. So, voice vote, please. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And nays? And
I'll abstain.
abstentions?
I'll abstain.
2 abstentions. All right. Thank you. Now, application of the Public Service Company of New Hampshire, DBA Eversource Energy, for a wetlands conditional use permit and shoreline conditional use permit for the replacement of three, close parenthesis, existing transmission line structures within an existing right-of-way corridor located between New Hampshire Route 101 westbound and Epping Road, New Hampshire Route 27. Subject properties are located in the RU rural and R1 low-density residential zoning districts. Tax map parcel number 29-1, 29-2, 29-31, 29 29-32. Planning-based board case number 21-11. And Dave, is this ready to be heard?
Mr. Chairman?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, yes.
I'm a PSNH retiree, and I feel I've got to recuse myself from this hearing.
Thank you.
Matter.
I'll consider
As
you-
painful as it is.
Yeah, I'd like to appoint Mark this evening to take your place.
Can I go home?
Yeah, you may go home.
No.
Or you may sit in the audience
I'm gonna-
and watch fireworks there. Okay.
I'll continue to sit here, but I won't.
So Dave, is the case ready to be heard?
Yes.
Okay. And have you got some comments for us to start off with?
I do. The applicant submitted plans and supported documents dated September 8th, which were all enclosed in your packet. And this is for a conditional use permit and a shoreline conditional use permit. So wetlands conditional use permit, shoreline conditional use permit. There's no site plan, there's no subdivision. It's just for those two permits. And as required by our regulations, they did appear before the Conservation Commission, who reviewed it. And I actually attended that meeting because that's where Kristen, we swapped because of a conference. She was at the last planning board
that's how she
meeting.
got stuck
I was
here.
at this Conservation Commission, where the commission had no objection to either of the permits, as presented. They did not recommend any conditions, and their letter from the chairman, Andrew Koff, dated October 13th, 2021, is enclosed in your packet. No TRC meeting was held on the application, but it was sent to staff to see if they had any comments, and staff does not have any comments or any objections to the request. And no waivers are being requested. And I, suggested conditions of approval, but I do not have any. I didn't think any were warranted. None of our standard conditions apply to this. It's a temporary thing that they're going in and fixing existing transmission lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is here to speak on behalf of the...
Good evening. My name is Chris Wilkes. I work with VHB, engineering consulting firm, and I'm representing Eversource on this project for local and state permitting. So Dave gave a really nice overview and summary. Thank you, Dave. But I'm happy to answer, any questions you guys have, and I'm happy to go through the project a little bit more with you guys in detail if that's helpful. What we're dealing with here is a maintenance project of an
Chris,
existing.
Let me stop you for a minute.
Sure.
I checked to see if the case is ready to be opened, but we didn't open it yet. So
Okay.
is there a motion to open the case? Go ahead.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Hand vote. Those in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Put your hand up. Okay. Noes? Motion carries. You may continue.
All right.
That dot has been dotted, or I have been dotted now.
So, as I was mentioning, it's a maintenance project that Eversource, it's for reliability of their transmission systems. They conduct periodic inspections every year on their system in New Hampshire, and they identify structures along each line that in terms of an engineering standard are deficient. And typically that's because the poles age, they're, well over 40, 50 years old, and or they're exhibiting damage. And a lot of these structures are wood structures, so they only have a certain lifespan. And the damage they typically see is internal rot as well as woodpecker damage, believe it or not. So We're talking about the H141 115 kV transmission line on this project. It runs through Exeter, and there's also a parallel existing transmission line called the A126, runs in the same existing right-of-way with it. We had done some work on this line a couple years ago in Exeter, where we came in and replaced a number of structures on both the A and the H lines, and so this is sort of the next phase. And Eversource's plan is, we're essentially picking away at replacing the structures in terms of increasing their future, shelf life. So for this one, it's a fairly small scope this year. They're looking at replacing only 3 structures, and it's within the segment of right-of-way between Route 101 and Epping Road. As you can see, you guys have a copy of the plan set. Essentially, it's just standard work for them. They go in, they use best management practices. They have a number of contractors that are familiar and do this work throughout New Hampshire, and it's pretty routine. But for this project, we are dealing with some wetlands and the upper sort of stem of the Little River. So that's why we're here before you tonight. We're asking for a conditional use for Wetlands Conservation District impacts. That's both temporary direct wetland impacts within the wetlands and then within their 40-foot respective buffers. And then because the Little River traverses through the right-of-way here, we're also within the Shoreline Protection District. And so we have some temporary impact within that related buffer. So right now, the structures, as I mentioned, are wood, and they consist of a H-frame configuration, so 2 poles with a cross brace across the top. The standard is to replace them in the same configuration with weathered steel. So that's what they've been doing, and that's how they continue to replace these structures, and they have a little longer of a lifespan. They're going to look very similar to what's out there. The steel is sort of a brownish color, same configuration. Typically, they're replaced relatively in kind, so within 10 feet of the existing structure, where that's feasible. On this project, they are moving one structure a little bit more significantly, structure 176. If you could see that, it's going to be moved 200 feet back online. And the reason for that is the structure currently sits in the middle of that floodplain wetland. So they are going to move it backwards and out of that wetland, which is seen in our eyes as a benefit in terms of future maintenance and also impacts to that wetland. So they're going to remove that, install it in a small upland area closer to Epping Road. And then the other 2 structures are going to be replaced relatively in kind, and that's structure 177, which is near Route 101, and structure 175, which is on the opposite side of Epping Road. The work is planned for this winter, so although we're dealing with snow and cold weather, it's sort of seen as a benefit in terms of construction approach with environmental impacts, because we're likely going to deal with frozen ground. We're outside the growing season, and so that helps in terms of limit the amount of disturbance on the ground. Where there's work that intersects the wetlands, they used timber mats, and I don't know if you guys have seen those, but basically they build a boardwalk out to the structure and it distributes their weight, and the idea there is they're eliminate any kind of rutting or major disturbance trying to get to that structure. They set up approximate 100 by 100 work area around the structure when they replace it, and that's just to stage their equipment and crews. And then at the end of the project, the timber mats will be removed, and we'll take a look at it for restoration. And if there's any disturbance, typically we'll put straw mulch over top, button it up for the winter, and then reassess it in the spring and see how things are growing back. And at that point, if there's seed or other things that are needed, then we typically we'll try and go for that. So access-wise, we're coming off of Epping Road for structures 176 and 175. Fairly straightforward. They're both right off the roadway on either side. We are in contact with DOT. We've gotten permit approvals for temporary driveway permits for those structures. Those are in hand. And for structure 177, we're looking to come off of Route 101 westbound. And we're currently in discussions with DOT to make that happen. And that way we eliminate having to traverse across that wetland and the Little River to try and get to that structure, which isn't really feasible. That's kind of the gist of it. I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys have, or I can go through the exact detail of what we're requesting in terms of impacts if you want.
Okay. Do I have him continue? Yes, Jen?
I just have two quick questions.
Sure.
So the boxes that we're seeing around the poles, is that the 100 by 100 work zone that you
Yep.
mentioned?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, so that's kind of just our estimate of their staging workspace they need. The one, you'll see there's a smaller one on there for the existing 176, and that's the removal structure, so they don't need as much room when they go in, because they essentially just drive in, cut the pole at the ground surface, and pull everything above ground out of there. So they need a smaller area for that removal, but the rest of them are usually 100 by 100 workspace, so.
Okay. And my second question isn't really project related, but I'm just kind of curious if you could explain why, like, how are we in the shoreland buffer here?
So the Little River is jurisdictional within your shoreland district. And it's a little bit, in this location, it's a little, it's not as well defined as a river because it flows through this floodplain wetland. So as you can see on the aerial, it's an area of inundation, and it kind of winds its way through this location before it becomes a little bit more well defined as an actual, river with banks when it goes under Route 101. But we just wanted to be on the safe side here, and so, and permit for it. And then the other piece of it is, from my understanding, is we set the shoreland district off of the actual wetland edge there, because in your regs that we had determined that, that line should be any contiguous wetland associated with a river, that shoreland buffer would come off of that edge of that wetland. So that's kind of how we established that, which puts structure 177 in there, and it also puts 176, and the reason because of that is because we're using the wetland edge for that district buffer. So even though that structure 176 is pretty far away and probably outside, it still is counted because it's all one system there, and with one buffer, basically, if that makes sense from what I recall.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's just I've never thought of that area as being shoreland.
Yeah, again, it's not very well defined through there of a stretch of river, so, but it is USGS mapped as the Little River.
Okay.
So we better account for it than not.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Continue.
Okay. So the impacts themselves we're looking at approximately, this is for the Wetlands Conservation District. We're looking at 7,415 square feet of direct temporary wetland impact proposed within wetland W31, which is the one that is...
May I just jump in, because I forgot to articulate this to you. The planning board and this permit process, I know the Conservation Commission has a say on the wetlands permit. We don't regulate the wetlands themselves, we regulate the buffer.
Okay.
So essentially what we're talking about here, just so we're all clear, is 177 and 175, because those are in the buffers.
Okay.
Whereas, 175 is completely in the wetland, and we leave that jurisdiction to the state.
Okay.
So we don't actually, we regulate the buffers from the wetland edge to out to the end of the buffer, and from the Little River out to the buffer, and not necessarily wetlands. Just make that, before you get into too deep.
Okay, then I'll skip the direct impact.
Skip the direct
Sure.
impact, yes.
So we're talking 6,990 square feet of temporary impact proposed within the 40-foot buffer of wetlands W31 and W32. So that is for the Wetlands Conservation District, is the 6,090 square feet of temporary impact within the buffer. In terms of the shoreland, we are looking at structure 177 is approximately 10,000 square feet of temporary impact within the 300-foot shoreline buffer of the Little River, an associated contiguous floodplain wetland due to the placement of that work pad, which is that box around 177, which is 100 by 100. And then we're also looking at the installation of new structure 176 will result in approximately 714 square feet of temporary impact within the 300-foot shoreline buffer of the Little River and associated contiguous floodplain wetland. And that's as a result of the placement of the construction work pad.
Okay. Questions? would have a question regarding what we're talking about is temporary impact.
Correct.
Basically the pads that are put out there.
That's correct.
That's a common practice, at least I've seen it for years.
Yep.
So what happens to those areas after the pads have been removed, I say a year down the line, does
in terms of what that area would look like, or, yeah.
What about the little guys and gals that are in the mud oozing around there?
Yeah, so, I think we've got a couple things on our side with the winter, doing the work in the winter.
Yep.
So typically, in like an inundated wetland like this, we might look at avoiding impacts to turtles, turtle species that the Fish and Game might be concerned about having habitat in this area. However, they hibernate in the winter, they go under in the mud. We've coordinated with Fish and Game on this project, and they didn't have any concerns, and they also agreed that doing the work in the winter is beneficial. So that's kind of in terms of the animals that might be out there. I think the lack of movement helps us during this time of year. Secondly, I guess in terms of use of timber mats, when they go in and they come out, especially on rights of way, usually these are pretty densely vegetated areas of, scrub, emergent vegetation, and often we see that when they pull those mats out, that vegetation that they basically just place the mat on top of is still relatively intact. So that stuff usually will bounce back on its own. And so often we don't really even need seed out there. Like this, and with the timing on this, we expect that during the next growing season, stuff is going to just naturally bounce right back like we were never there. But we do a post-construction inspection, and we will go out there in early spring and take a look and make sure everything is coming back and there's no exposed soils or ruts anywhere that need attention. So that's usually, but it's within a year or so down the road, you usually can't tell we were there. So it's just because of how quickly these rights of way grow up with vegetation, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Sure. Just one question on the A line.
Yep.
What's the current condition of the towers located in the area that you're working right now? Are those things you're going to have to address in the future? Have they already been upgraded?
Good question. I don't have the answer. I'm not sure if you know, but.
So yeah, we'll have to take care of it at some point in the future.
Okay.
Could you step to the microphone, please, so we can hear your muffled voice? Thank you.
We will take care of them in the future. So basically, my name is Jeremy Fennell, Eversource.
Thank you.
We do inspections on our lines every couple of years, so those poles did not fail inspection, but at some point in the future, they will fail inspection, and we'll have to go back and replace them. And I'll try to preempt your next question because we get it a lot. The reason we don't rebuild all our lines, for Exeter or any other town is because we have really bad poles in other parts of the state. We don't have the budget and things of that nature to replace every single pole. So while it would be more efficient, they're just poles that are in very bad condition in other parts of the state that we have to take care of. But we do try to, in our uplands, leave some access roads if we can. So when we come back, we can facilitate access easier.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't think there's anybody here, but.
Excuse me?
I don't think there's anybody here, but did you open it to the
No,
public?
I didn't open to the public. Good point. We open the meeting to the public. Anybody that would like to ask a question or discuss this application could please step forward and introduce yourself. Pete could speak if he could. You're public. You're representing John Q. Public tonight. Would you like to speak, sir?
No.
Okay. That's probably good. No.
I don't want to impact my pension.
All right, I will close the public session. Come back to the board. All right.
Chair, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember when you said you were here a couple of years ago, and it seems you had somebody here that was a wildlife specialist, and they were, I don't know if it was Tracy Tarr maybe, or someone who is knowledgeable and had surveyed the site just to see what might be out there that could be damaged or impacted by the work that you're doing. And I'm just looking at this and wondering if, it sounds like you had Fish and Game maybe has looked at it, but I guess ultimately my question would be, are you aware of anything that might be out here? You mentioned turtles, but anyone who's working on the site, will they be alerted to the fact that they should keep an eye open, and if they should see something that they would take appropriate action just to protect whatever it may be that's living in the mud?
Yeah, certainly. For this project, to get our state approvals, we need to go through the standard review with Natural Heritage Bureau, which is a request for information for this area. We give them a project footprint. They spit us out a report that identifies any records of species within the vicinity of the project. So we do have that. We got through that. They did not identify any plants, but they did have, like I mentioned, a couple animals that they had identified. So from there, when anything like a turtle or snake are identified, then it gets kicked to Fish and Game pretty much right off the bat, and NHB doesn't really deal with that type of those species. So on this project, we had Blanding's turtle, spotted turtle, and wood turtle be identified on the NHB report, and we also had the northern black racer, which is a snake. So those were the species that we followed up with Fish and Game on, and we usually will go back and forth with them a little bit. They're very familiar with Eversource and how they operate because they see a lot of this work, and they review a lot of this maintenance work. So at this point, years in, we have sort of standard practices that we'll usually say to them, hey, we got maintenance coming up, we're going to follow the standard 5 protocols that we implement on every maintenance job, and usually it's a kind of a quick sign off from them. And what that usually involves is if we're doing work during the active season of the turtles or snakes, that we're doing a pre-construction visual sweep every day before we go out onto the work pads or the timber mats, so that we're trying to avoid running something over that might be basking in the sun on one of the timber mats. So the second piece of that is we distribute there's flyers that Fish and Game have created that have really good pictures of these species with descriptions. So we'll give those to the contractor and the crews, and we kind of run through a training session with them in the field where we identify, look, these are the species that were brought up. Here's the pictures and the information. If you guys see anything, you're supposed to immediately report it to environmental, Eversource Environmental, and then we determine from there if it's, valid sighting, and then we talk to Fish and Game. And so usually, we encourage if they can get a picture, and then we kind of take it from there. So that's the usual. And then the other piece of it is erosion controls. So Fish and Game have basically, they don't like to see like plastic mesh erosion controls. So if you picture like a silt sock with the plastic mesh, that's a known source of entanglement for like snakes and turtles, and they've seen it out on rights of way. So they usually require us to use something else, and so we commit to that. Like we're going to use a mesh, a cloth-based encased silt sock or something similar, so we don't have to run and do that potential issue. So that's sort of like the most often the protocols we put forth to them, and usually they're pretty comfortable with, because we've been doing it for so long, and they know that we do hold these training sessions with the crews prior to the start of work. Eversource has really gotten good with that, making sure that happens. And we're not just going over the rare species stuff, we're going over all the permit conditions, if there's any imposed by the town, the standards through the state permits that we get approvals for that speak to best management practices out there with erosion and sediment control. So we go through all that with them and make sure that, before they get going, everyone's aware of what's expected and, how to stay out of trouble, basically. So I think, like I said, for this one too, working in the winter really helps because of that. We don't anticipate anything being active, and so the pre-construction sweeps and everything, they'll do that informally, but since we're outside the active season, they're not really required by Fish and Game. So they just don't expect, everything's going to be hibernating. And I think the active season ends, if I can recall, I think November 1st. So we'll start this work after that. So
the people that do the work have done work in the prime season for animals to be out and about, so they're aware of. Though they're working in the winter, they are aware of it from having worked on sites.
Yeah, I'd say the contractors that Eversource works with for this, there's a handful of them, and they're all very used to these conditions and the expectations when it comes to the rare plants, the animals, the environmental controls. The other thing that Eversource does is added security in terms of the environmental compliance. Is they often have someone like myself go out weekly and do an inspection on the line while construction is happening. And so that's, we'll go out weekly, we'll document what they're up to, we'll take photos, we make sure they're doing a good job, and then we submit a report to, say, Jeremy, and he'll look at it, and if there's any action items there and need to be addressed, then they usually get sent right out to the contractor, or we deal with it right while we're on site. So we do anticipate probably doing an inspection on this project weekly, and it's probably going to be me. So because I live pretty close by and it's kind of right in my backyard. So that helps, too, if there's any instances where something is cited or there's something else in terms of the wetlands, having someone there present to work with them, talk it through is helpful. So
oftentimes, we've had weeks in middle of November when it's been in the 80s.
Oh, I know. It's
so if you're working, I just want to be, I want to feel comfortable about the fact that somebody's going to be vigilant and
certainly
these creatures they're not insignificant if there are indeed landings, turtles, or any of those that you mentioned, or?
Certainly. Yeah, we'll be planning on doing that training with them as soon as we get all our permits in hand and the work is scheduled. And so we'll start, once the contractor's identified, we'll make sure that we do that training, and then we'll probably kick right into the weekly inspection out there. So we should have a pretty good tab on the work when they get there. So.
Great, thank you for answering questions.
Okay. Any other questions? I've got a question for Dave on where this is a temporary arrangement. Do we need to go through all of the 5 justifications for these 2?
Well, the criteria still applies. I mean, it's up to you. You don't have to go through it all point by point if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, they've submitted a 13-page and about 7 pages dedicated to why it meets the criteria.
Yes, right.
So if everyone felt comfortable and reviewed it and, and feels then you don't need to necessarily go through it, but it's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
It's up to the board. But it does apply.
Yeah. So let me say, just a sense of the board, do you wish to have more detail, or do you feel comfortable moving ahead to move these on along? Any comments then? Seems to me it's pretty thorough and pretty straightforward, and this is not new for them. It's not new for your contractors, so, and we've approved this stuff before, so I'm comfortable with it.
I am.
Okay, then I'm just looking for a motion to, we got 2 things here. How about we do the conditional use permit for wetlands conservation overlay?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Okay?
Make a motion after reviewing the criteria for a wetlands conditional use permit, I move that the request of PSNH Eversource Energy Planning Board case number 21-11 for a conditional use permit be approved.
Second.
And thank you. John's still here. All right, any discussion on the motion? Then I think we need to do a roll call vote, please. And let me start, John, with you.
Aye.
Next, Aaron?
Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries, 7-0. And the next one would be the shoreland motion.
I'll make a motion, the shoreline motion. After reviewing the criteria for a shoreline conditional use permit, I move that the request of PSNH Eversource Energy Planning Board case number 21-11 for a conditional use permit to be approved.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Mark? Any discussion on the motion itself? Roll call again. Start with you, Mark.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
7-0. Thank you very much. You're all set.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Well, appreciate your thoroughness and your preparation.
Oh, good. All right.
And how did you find the experience? We have a new person in this plan board.
We're happy with it.
Good.
Good night.
Okay.
Biting for something up here? That's the one.
Other business, master plan discussion.
You want?
Is there anything about master plan tonight we need to talk about?
This one?
Yes.
Is that what they?
Not this evening.
Okay.
And this is?
Field modifications?
None requested.
Performance guarantees? None have requested.
None requested.
Announcements?
Yes, I have, well, I don't know if it falls under, but I'll take this time.
You got the floor.
Next Thursday, you have a meeting scheduled November 4th. You do not have any business scheduled. Normally, I would say I would like that time with you to discuss some matters, but, and, updates and so forth, but I will be in Providence, Rhode Island, Thursday and Friday for a New England Municipal Sustainability Network annual conference. I represent the town, and these are mandatory annual conferences to be part of NEM, so I will be there. So I don't see a need unless you want to have a meeting and talk amongst yourselves. You can cancel the November 4th
What do you
meeting.
say?
Let's cancel the meeting.
Second.
Yeah.
Can I vote on that?
Consensus is we enjoy our time
Your
otherwise.
next meeting will be November 18th.
So our next meeting will be the 18th, and site to be, or location yet to be announced, I guess.
TBD.
Okay. Anybody have a motion?
Wow. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion before 8 o'clock.
Please.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second? Yes?
Second.
Before 8 o'clock.
Wow. That's a Lang Plummer record right there.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.